every time you see yourself getting a little bit better, push yourself a little bit harder.
Founder and CEO of Man of War, Rafa Conde.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Man of War podcast. My name is Rafa Conde, and of course, I am a man on a mission here to forge you into the best version of yourself, into a stronger, warrior-minded man. That's right, we're building this Man of War army step by step, and this is what we're about here in this podcast, bringing you the uniqueness of living a life that truly embodies the warrior spirit. All right, before we get started, do me a favor on Instagram, at Man of War with 2 R's. Give us a follow there, youtube.com/Man of War. Give us a sub there, man. We are working our asses off on YouTube to bring you quality content 2-3 times a week. So your support would really be appreciated. If you have not heard, if you've been living under a rock somehow, some way, about the Man of War Crucible, it is a rite of passage for men, the fastest growing brotherhood of warrior-minded men in the planet. Go check it out, Men of War Crucible. That's MEN of War Crucible.com. All right, so we're in episode 186. Can you believe that? Almost 5 years ago, I started this Man of War podcast, and all I can tell you is, damn, man, I am so excited for not only where we are now, but where we are headed. Just incredible. We have a couple of good, solid months ahead of us. We're going to bring you some great guests and, of course, really drill down on some major topics and subjects that hopefully will help you become a stronger version of who you are. So let's talk a little bit about why it is that so many men give up their ground. Now, during one of my coaching sessions today, that I was asked, hey, Rafa, the reality is that sometimes I get to a certain level and then I fall back, right? I go to maybe, like a 7 or an 8, and then I go back to a 3. And I continue living this life of bouncing between a 3, a 7, sometimes an 8, sometimes even a 9, and then I go back down to a 3 or a 2. Well, all I can say here is this. That is something very normal. Most men don't live in this platform of an 8 or a 9 or a 10 in efficiency, right? It's very, very difficult. Even the men who are at a higher level bounce back and forth between, ebbs and flows in life. However, as warrior men, we are constantly striving to sharpen our blade, to be better today than we were yesterday, and of course, tomorrow better than we are today. Now, with that said, understand this. We need to build foundations. So if you are moving forward and you are growing and you are at a foundational level of maybe a 2 or 3, that's your foundation. That's your starting point. And if you get to a level where maybe you're touching a 7 or an 8, and then all of a sudden you drop back to a 3, that's because you haven't set your standard. You really haven't built on your foundation. Right. And one of the things that I remember being taught in SWAT school, and one of the most important elements that you have when you were entering a house or a structure or even setting up a perimeter, is when you gain that ground, you seize it, right? The ground in front of you that you gain, you seize it, you own it. You never give up that ground, come hell or high water. That's the same mentality that you need to put out there when you are living your life, right? So if you gained, say, 2 or 3 points on each level, and you've really now, over the last 6 months, you've put in your time, you put in your effort, and your company's growing, maybe you've gotten stronger, you're more disciplined, your mindset's a little bit stronger, well, then that means that you've progressed. If you can go back 3 or 4 months and you could really focus on how you were before versus where you are now, you'll realize that you've already set a little bit of a higher standard. The goal here, though, is not to fall back where you were before. Again, if you've seized that ground, then keep that ground. You own it. Don't give it away. Many men give that ground up for free, and by the time they know it, they're back to where they started. 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. Let's not live that type of life. Warriors, we push, we move forward, right? That's the idea. We attack with everything that we have. Now, how do we build these platforms? First and foremost, every time you see yourself getting a little bit better, push yourself a little bit harder, because the reality is that you don't want to settle back. So today, for example, maybe I've learned a couple of extra things. Maybe I've done things differently. I learned from my experiences. I started to integrate certain aspects in my life, certain tasks that are making me stronger. All right, repetition, right? We talk about repeating things over and over again, dialing down on them. When you are repeating these things over and over again and they're becoming part of who you are, now they start becoming that foundation, right? We talk in the heat of battle. Most men believe that somehow they're going to rise up in the heat of battle and use tactics and strategies and techniques that somehow they're just going to pull them out of their ass. But the reality is that we fall back to the lowest baseline of our training. The good thing is that if we're capable of falling back to a baseline that is foundationally sound, that baseline may not be at a 2.0 anymore. That baseline may be at a 3 or a 4. You understand where I'm going with this? Progression. You build your foundation step by step. Repetition, as you become better, you become a stronger version of yourself. Now, understand that, going from a level 2 to a level 3 may be 3 months, 6 months, even a year. It all depends. But the idea here is that you can look back and say, wow, I was there at one point and I've evolved and here I am today. I've grown. My foundation is solid. My standards are much higher. So again, when you seize that ground, that belongs to you. Your blood, your sweat, your effort, the time you put into it, do not let that ground up. You own it. Now, think about it this way. As you grow and you build these foundations, just like in the martial arts, right? You move up belt rankings and all of a sudden your baselines are a little bit different. The way you kick, the way you punch, the way you choke someone, the way you can feel the other person's center when you are, maybe rolling in jiu-jitsu, the way that you can, feel an attack, coming at you if you're sparring a kick or a punch or someone's intention, right? I mean, now you're getting to a higher level step by step by step. And when you start living with that framework, you start applying that to everything that you do, right? In business, in your relationship with your wife, the way you lead your company. Because now we're talking about a very, very positive word here that I live by. It's a Japanese term coined kaizen. Kaizen is about not only repetition, but it's about really hacking away the unessentials and constant improvement. If we're constantly improving day by day, our baseline is going to move up incrementally, little by little. And by the time you know it, your standards are set at a much, much higher level. I challenge you to step up and really give yourself 50 days, 50, okay, 50 days of doing something repetitive, right? We talk about bulletproof habits. It takes 50 days to build a solid habit. I challenge you to go out there and do 50 days of building something, of following up with a task, integrating a new aspect in your business, integrating something new in your life, and then building from it, really building from it. And at 50 days, I will say this, I guarantee you that you have set some type of foundation. Now, the problem here is this. The more that we do things, sometimes we get bored of doing the same thing over and over again. Repetition seems boring, right? The grind, constantly spinning your wheels. Well, guess what? It doesn't have to be that way. Just because you are integrating something in what you do does not necessarily mean that it has to be boring. You can integrate something very powerful, an element into your life, and be creative with it. You can start using it in different facets of your life. So, for me, for example, let me give you a situation that I had in my life. One of the most difficult things for me was to come out and be transparent and be authentic, right? Especially when someone was filming and when I was talking into my phone. Keep in mind, I was a narcotics agent for a long time, so we weren't even allowed to have social medias. We weren't even allowed to be on film or anything like that. So that was difficult for me to make the transition to start being, first of all, to be on camera, right? So the first thing that I started to do was filming myself every day, 3-4 times a day, speaking into my iPhone, blah, 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 figuring it out one way or another. And I can go back and, man, some of these videos are so fucking stupid. I look like a fucking asshole. And it just seems like the more I was filming myself, really, the worse it looked in my eyes. I was like, oh my God, I can't listen to my voice. I sound like a jerk. I look like an idiot. Like, it's just terrible, right? But one thing that I did was, no matter what, I stayed true to it, moving forward, continuing moving forward, doing it and do it and do it, right? So eventually it got to a point where, I sounded okay, because in reality, I mean, I was just so bored of seeing my face on the phone and listening to myself that it was okay. But the next thing I knew was people then were like, "Hey, man, you sound pretty good. You're much more improved. You're a little bit more relaxed when you're on camera and so on." So as I brought myself, I guess, came out more and became more authentic and a little bit more me through film, through a video, things got a little bit easier to talk about. And the more I did it, the stronger I became. Now, 50 days, I'm serious. 50 days is what I did. I did video on my phone for 50 freaking days. And then after that, I started filming myself on better cameras, started to talk into a mic, and then my podcast. Look, if you go back to the first podcast, oh my God, into the first podcast that I did, I sound like a robot. Right? I sound like a robot. I tried to edit all my ums and all my this and all my that, but the reality is that I wasn't coming across authentic. I really wasn't. But as I improved my delivery, my articulation, my thought process, and I started to repeat it over and over again, it just became almost second nature. So, look, it takes time, and I get it. Everything in life takes time. But when you seize that ground, build that foundation, do not give an inch. Get stronger in every facet of your life by using that same strategy. I promise you, it'll be life-changing. All right, so this takeaway today, all about seizing that ground. Do not give an inch. When you take that ground, you own it. All right, guys, follow us, Man of War with 2 R's on Instagram, youtube.com/Man of War. All right, please give us a sub there on YouTube. That's a beast. We're doing everything we can to build that platform. Also, on Twitter, Rafa J. Conde. You can go to TikTok, Rafa J. Conde there also. I would appreciate your support. And of course, finally, Redefining the 21st Century Man. Go buy it. It is a great book. I truly believe in it. 2 years took me to write it. And I put in really my vision of what life is all about. All right, guys, until next time, your life may be challenging and full of dangers, but never retreat. Your last battle may be your greatest victory.